I'm Dr. Joe DeLoach with Practice Compliance Solutions. I want to clarify some points about a confusing topic in HIPAA, the security risk assessment. Are you confused? Seemingly overwhelmed? We totally understand. HIPAA is constantly made more complicated than it has to be by IT companies, on blogs, even by some HIPAA companies. PCS always tries to make things 100% compliant, but in the most simple manner possible. To do that, we have to understand the HIPAA law letter by letter. HIPAA tells us one very important thing about risk assessments. The standards are not the same for large and small businesses. These HIPAA concepts of flexibility and scalability come right from the text of the law. It clearly says HIPAA does not expect small healthcare practices to have the same complexity of compliance as operations at large entities. It says that when a small practice creates their privacy and security standards, they're allowed to take the size, complexity, capabilities, and finances of the practice into account. So let's translate what that means. Security is unique to each practice, and the complexity can vary depending on the size and the cost to the practice. While we still must be making reasonable attempts to protect patient privacy, there are many things in HIPAA that have nothing to do with an optometry practice. This is even more true when it comes to OSHA. Generic programs designed for large clinics make the burden of compliance for small healthcare practices much harder than it has to be. Big area confusion. A risk assessment is all about your computer network. While important, computer issues constitute less than half of the components of a risk assessment. A complete risk assessment has administrative, physical, and technical components. Let's dive into that concept. Administrative standards have a lot to do with employees and planning on the unfortunate security incident that might happen. Another thing you will notice are these R and A designations. R standards are required. For an A standard, you must consider they do or even can be applied to your individual business to see if they're reasonable actions based on your practice details. Physical standards have a lot to do with your physical building, locks, alarms. What kind of media devices do you have? How do you dispose of information containing personal health information? And as you see, we haven't said much about computers yet. Technical standards, finally, something specific to your computers and computer network. This issue is as clear as day. Although your computer issues are very important, they are only a component of the security requirements your practice and only part of a security risk assessment. A good way to think about conducting a risk assessment goes something like this. Walk out of your building into the parking lot and start toward your front door. Look at the lights on the building, the locks, the alarms. Go inside. Do you have paper medical records? What is your level of auditory privacy? How big is your office? Old PCs in your storage room? Overflowing shredder boxes? All these things in these three areas of security standards, yes, including computers. This is a real risk assessment. Now, we can't just point out things that could be a risk to privacy and not attempt to do something to eliminate those risks. Sometimes we can eliminate them, sometimes we can mitigate them, and sometimes we can't do anything about them. HIPAA tells us we must make, again, a reasonable attempt to eliminate or mitigate those risks in a documented fashion. That is what we call a risk management plan. Let's emphasize again. Compliance in HIPAA is hard enough. It's a lot easier when you work with a company that understands the law and understands the profession of optometry. That company is PCS. PCS is optometry's compliance company. We're here to help. Let us help you. Thank you again.